Hey there, and welcome to everybody on the All Things MSP community. We so much appreciate that you join us for these updates from vendors, from other subject matter experts. We try and provide some useful information in small bits so that you can kind of get through them quickly and see which ones interest you and find out a little bit more, whether it's a vendor or in this case today, we're finding out about IT Service Provider University. And of course, if you know the name, you know that Karl Palachuk is a huge powerhouse behind this. And I know I've said this story before, but Karl is probably one of the most influential people in my career as an MSP. My MSP was basically built on the back of his emails that I got every week. And so it is my pleasure, my privilege to bring Karl Palachuk to All Things MSP.
Well, thank you. Now, I'm glad that it's being recorded because I want to use that as an endorsement in my business.
Absolutely, sir. And it's no lie. Like, I think I had a 3-ring binder. I would print out your emails every week and put them in a 3-ring binder.
You might be an old man. I'm just putting it out there.
That is how you might know I'm old.
Yeah. Well, my marketing manager always gives me a bad time. Like, oh, don't worry about this, because nobody's going to print off the webpage. I'm like,
I did it today.
Yeah, exactly. So
because there's something there's something about having a physical piece of paper and being able to take a pen to it and mark it up.
Well, that's exactly it. Sometimes I like to sit in a chair with a pencil and a piece of paper and consume something and put my feedback onto the paper and think about it for a while without a screen in front of me.
Yep. And of course, that leads us to the conversation of today, which is about education. And, education is so important in any industry, but in the MSP world, I think we're a little bit haphazard when it comes to making training available to our employees and our staff, because so many MSPs are smaller businesses. And you are trying to fix that problem with ITSPU.
Yeah. So, I first heard this from Dave Seibert, so I don't know where it originated, but he said, he tells the story of, talking to somebody who said, I don't want to spend all this money on training for my employees because what happens if they take my training and certification and leave? And he said, well, what happens if you don't train them and they stay? Right. And it's absolutely true. We used to value training a lot more in this industry, in my opinion. If you go back 15, 20 years, a lot of people came from other industries first and had to learn the business model, had to learn how we do things in small business. And so they valued education. But I think when people start out in the industry, start out in SMB IT, which you can, today without any problem, I think there's less of a sense that you need some kind of more formal training. And yet, what we do is put on 5-week courses. And so, over the course of 5 hours of training, people realize, wow, there's a lot more here than I thought there was. And that's true on every topic.
Well, that's great because we kind of lack that training that you do have in the corporate world, right? There's a lot of that goes on in the corporate world because it's so standardized and programmatic, but small businesses tend to be all over the place. And so we don't have that. I started my first break fix business because we didn't have MSP back then with barely the ink dry on my computer engineering degree. And so I had no idea what I was doing going into business for myself. And there are so many aspects of it that something like ITSPU can help with. What types of training do you guys have on that non-technical, really pertains to the small business side of things?
And pretty much everything we do is on the business side. It is not, how to use troubleshoot TCP/IP or something like that. Although that's another story. But we mostly focus on how to run the business, how to set it up, that kind of stuff. We have one class that's only 1 hour and it's free to everybody. And it's basically we call it the foundations class. It's on the managed service business model. Because I think your newest employee, your most senior technician, your service manager, your front office, everybody needs to know what managed service is and why it's different from break fix, why it's different from being focused on hardware and so forth. So that kind of understanding at the business level that we are in a very specific kind of business, I think that goes a long ways. And so our topics cover everything. Some of the great names in our industry. Rayanne Buccianico teaches our classes on QuickBooks and finances. So if you want to set up your business to grow and manage the finances properly, she's got several courses offered for you through ITSPU. And then we cover, managing the service board from a business perspective, right? Not just how to use your ticketing system, but, managing the technicians, managing the clients, managing the relationships. So we kind of cover it all. And we have different pathways for people in the service department, people in management, and of course there's an overlap, the service managers in the service department, but also front office and sales, marketing, and even an entire track for people who are business owners, because you need to know different things than technicians. And there's some of the stuff that I think everybody should have kind of not necessarily a completely open book system, but as open as you're comfortable with. And as a result, I think everybody needs some of the finances, but owners and managers need a deeper dive in that than most of the employees.
So you break it out into tracks then for the certain types of roles that exist in an MSP. That must really help them when they're coming into this, because it could be overload, right?
Right.
If there's all these courses, but you've kind of predefined paths for them, it sounds like.
Yeah, we have these pathways, and we have a certification program where we basically say, here are the core classes, right? Like if you're going to be in management, you need to take this, this, and this. And then here's some additional electives that, if you take the right combination, you get an elevated certification. But it's literally designed for people to say, oh, I see, I need that. And you can kind of see the skill sets. We started out class number 1, which we still teach today after 11 years, is standard operating procedures. It is literally, how do you build a business on doing things consistently the same way all the time across all your employees, all your offices. Doesn't matter whether you're a 7-state operation or 3 guys in the basement, you need standard operating procedures. And so there's a lot of, I guess you would call them truth bombs that get dropped in not only that class, but every single class that we offer.
Yeah, I mean, those standard operating procedures, even as a solo person, it's very easy to get into a mindset that you don't need standard operating procedures until you get busy. And as soon as you get busy, even if you're the only person there, having processes set up can save you so much time. And especially if you're somebody like me that suffers from a little bit of ADHD, it can help steer you in the right direction and focus a little bit better.
Well, the other thing is, a lot of times what standard operating procedures do for you is they eliminate your need to think about certain things. For example, and I love this example because it goes back to day one. I download some drivers or some software so that I can install it on this machine and the next machine and the next machine. Where do I put that? Your company should have one answer to that question. And that way, anybody, anywhere, anytime can go to any machine at any client 5 years later, and they know the only one place where the software and drivers are going to be, period. And your place might be different than my place, but you should have a place. And every one of your employees never has to think about that. They don't have to say, well, it's in a software folder under the server, under blah, 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 No, it's in the one place. And for us, we create what we call C:"bang tech, right? It gets filtered to the top of the list of folders under the tech directory, and that's it. Nobody ever has to look anywhere else. So there's tiny little things like that. Imagine how many hours my companies have saved over the course of the last 30 years by nobody ever having to think about where to put something or where somebody else might have put something. So SOPs are gargantuan in saving lots of time, lots of effort, lots of energy by making tiny little decisions that everybody can easily follow. And it's not micromanaging. It is literally saying, this is just the way we do things. And it makes everybody's life easier because nobody on your team ever has to have an argument of what's the best place to store downloaded software.
Yeah, I can absolutely remember using that tactic. We used to use C:\MDC for Mount Dora computers. And that was, the one place where everything, drivers, whatever we did on a machine, that is the folder that it went into. And then one of the other things that I know you're a big proponent of that we did as a standard operating process was we did not allow the individual users to have admin rights on their individual machines. And those are just a couple of the things that I remember that I can directly attribute to your training, sir.
And therefore, you had a lot less viruses, a lot fewer viruses to deal with over the course of the decades.
I absolutely did. And that's, I mean, honestly, my break fix business, viruses were just becoming a thing. But by the time I got to my managed services business, yeah, it saved me a ton by having, not given those admin rights to the individual users. So what are some of your favorite courses that are in the catalog right now?
Well, my favorite courses may not be everybody else's. Obviously, managed services in a month, right? That is a perennial favorite. But I love the course that I co-teach with my brother. We teach a class on the most important checklist for any managed service business. And, every year we go through it, or every other year when we teach it. And we say, are these still the most important lists? Are these still the key things? Is this it? And then what's changed? Because even though you've got this checklist, for example, one of them is onboarding employees, right? Which sounds like it's very simple, except 99.9% of all companies, not just small, but all companies in the world do it wrong, right? And, sink or swim is not a process, right? But that's what happens. I'm so busy that I have to hire somebody. So I hire somebody and then I'm too busy to prepare for them to actually show up for work, right? It's like, stop, don't ever do that again. And it's a perfect example of, slow down, get more done. Take a little time to do it right the first time. Anyway, so that course is always fun because I do it with my brother. We each trade off which checklists we're going to do each time. And so even if I taught employees last time, I teach client onboarding next time, right? And then we have the last few times we've started teaching one of the 5 weeks together. And so that becomes just sort of, a fun fest where I'm not 100% sure what he's going to say at any time. So I have to have the mute button ready, But anyway, that's a fun class for me. And then, we have a lot of classes that are focused on project management and sort of kind of, the higher level stuff of everybody knows how to do this some way. Let's figure out how you can figure out what's the best way for your company. And, and that's a good example of kind of our philosophy that, and you've seen this, I tell you how I do it with a huge disclaimer at the top and the bottom that says, but I don't run your company and you don't run my company. So take this, integrate it, make it your own, and you can find your success.
And that's an important piece of it because small to medium-sized businesses have what I like to call a lot more character. And because of that, they have a lot more individualistic attributes. And yeah, you can't pigeonhole MSPs because they are so different.
Right. Well, it's funny. So way back when I first wrote Managed Services in a Month, I had somebody come up to me at a conference and say, oh, thank you for your book. It changed my life, blah, blah, blah. And so I said, okay, great. So tell me how you integrated. And he literally, I remember him saying the words, well, we're not signing contracts and we don't get prepaid for everything. And we are not selling blocks of time and we're not scheduling work in advance and, tick, 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 tick. And I'm like, so you're not doing one thing I told you to do. What are you giving me credit for exactly? Right. But, you and I talking at 100 conferences over the years, we just talk about the way that we do things and we share ideas, and it cannot help but being filtered into your DNA of, oh, I'm going to pick that idea and I'm going to put it together and figure out how to improve my system. Right. So it's just in general, talking about these things as a business owner, as a business manager will improve your business, period. It just will.
Yep. So what's coming up in 2025?
So we try to add 1 or 2 new classes every year. And so we have one new class coming up in February, which is on mergers and acquisitions from James Kernan. And James has helped many companies, both buying and selling businesses, to make sure that they get the right price. But it's also, he takes the philosophy, which I do, that you run a marathon for 20 years and then you run a sprint for 2 years. And so the way you run your business every day that puts money in your pocket and feeds your family and pays your rent and funds your retirement is one thing. What you do in the last couple of years is a whole different thing. And yes, the criteria might actually change year to year. So the so-called industry KPIs are not particularly useful for the first 20 years. They are useful in the last 2 years. So anyway, so he talks about valuing your business and so forth and so on. And we expect that to be very well received. And then another new class. So Lori Hartkey is a Profit First coach, and she has taught Profit First for MSPs with us. And she's morphing into a new system called Profit Builder Blueprint for IT service providers. And Lori literally shows people step by step how to run a ridiculously profitable business with no employees and only outsourced labor. And she proves it every day. For 10 years, she's owned a business in Arizona and she lives in Hawaii. So, it's sort of like, this is how I do it. You need to morph it for your own system, but she shows you it really, really can be done. So, so those are the new classes. And what we do every year is we forget the first and last week of the year because they're a lost cause, and we take the middle 50 weeks, divide it into 10 courses, and so we offer 10 live courses every year. But we have 26 courses total, so you can get the rest of them on demand anytime. You also get permanent access. So if you took a class, let's say you took cloud services in a month 3 years ago, well, the next time it's offered, all you have to do is show up and you have access and you can watch it live again. Or 6 months from now, you can just say, oh, I needed to get some of those handouts and download that worksheet. Where do I find that? And you just log in and download it and it's all there.
That's a great benefit. So, Karl, I really appreciate what ITSPU does and appreciate what you've contributed to the community over the years. If somebody's interested in getting more information or signing up for ITSPU, how would they do that?
Just go to ITSPU.com and there you'll see we get it. I think it's a beautiful site. We completely redid it last year, and it's very functional. And we also have a great integration with several tools, including Vimeo. So you can pick up where you left off, move from your phone to your iPad to your desktop, and just it literally will save where you are, and you can watch half here and half there, and we have transcripts and everything. So even if you have accessibility issues, we've made it a very accessible site. So ITSPU.com.
Awesome. Well, I wish you the best in 2025, and I really do hope that we get to see each other live and in person at some point this year.
I do too. Thank you, sir. I appreciate being here.